A week before Christmas, I overheard my family plotting to embarrass me and kick me out, so I changed the plan. On December 24th, when Mom called asking, "Where are you?" I just laughed and told her not to wait for me at the catering. Christmas used to be my favorite time of year. I'm Frances Harper, 28 years old, and for most of my life, the holiday season meant magic. That all changed last December. It was the Christmas I discovered that my own family was planning to publicly humiliate me and then erase me from their lives, all while pretending it was for my own good. I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, as part of the Harper family. We were known for three things: money, influence, and impossibly high expectations. My dad, Thomas Harper, was a self-made man who built his investment firm from the ground up, a classic success story everyone loved to talk about. My mom, Diane, came from old money and served on so many charity boards she needed a small notebook just to keep track. Then there were my siblings. Jordan, my 32-year-old brother, followed perfectly in Dad's footsteps. And Amanda, 30, became the corporate lawyer my parents loved to name drop at their country club parties. And then there was me. From the time I was young, the plan for my life was clear: a prestigious university, a degree in law or finance, and then a position at the family firm or some other impressive company. I did my part and went to Columbia University. But during my sophomore year, I took a metalwork class as an elective, and something inside me just woke up. For the first time, I felt truly alive, creating things with my hands. By my senior year, instead of applying to law school, I was selling my own handcrafted jewelry at campus events. The family backlash was swift and severe. My dad didn't speak to me for 3 months. My mom scheduled informational interviews with family friends who worked in law firm recruitment. My siblings cycled between awkward silence and lectures about how I was throwing my life away. But I didn't back down. After graduation, I used my savings to rent a tiny studio apartment in Brooklyn and set up my first workshop. I lived on ramen noodles, worked 16-hour days, and slowly, painstakingly, built my business, Francesca Designs, from nothing. 5 years later, my pieces were being carried in boutiques across New York and New Jersey. I was finally making a comfortable living doing what I loved. My family, however, never saw it as a real career. At every gathering, the script was the same. Mom would sigh and ask, "So, you're still doing that jewelry thing?" Dad would follow with, "When you're ready to get serious about your future, you know where to find me." Jordan would offer to look over my books as if I were a child playing store, and Amanda would periodically email me job listings for executive assistant positions, as if my degree and 5 years of running a business counted for nothing. Christmas at the Harper house was a particularly spectacular production. My parents' colonial mansion had 6 bedrooms, a grand staircase that was perfect for family photos, and a dining room that could seat 20. Every December, my mother transformed it into a page from a high-end magazine. Professional decorators were brought in, and the ornaments and color schemes changed every year. These events were less about celebration and more about maintaining a certain image. The guest list was a who's who of extended family, business associates, and influential friends. Conversations revolved around promotions, exclusive vacations, and which Ivy League schools were accepting which children. In that environment, my small jewelry business felt as significant as a lemonade stand. Still, I always tried. I'd buy expensive clothes I couldn't really afford, rehearse impressive-sounding answers about my work, and bring carefully chosen homemade gifts that usually ended up re-gifted or forgotten. I brought cookies that sat untouched next to the caterer's perfect canapes. I endured the polite, pitying smiles and the quick subject changes whenever I mentioned my latest collection. This particular Christmas was a big one for my parents. Relatives from the West Coast and Europe were flying in, some whom we hadn't seen in years. My mother had been planning since August, hiring extra staff and even renovating the guest rooms. When she called me in November, there was a rare note of excitement in her voice. "Frances, everyone will be here this year. Even Grandmother Harper is coming from London. We need to present a united front." That tiny hint of inclusion made me hope that this year could be different. I spent 3 months designing a special collection of personalized jewelry for everyone. For my father, cufflinks that incorporated the design from his first business card. For my mother, a delicate necklace featuring her favorite flower. For my siblings, matching bracelets with subtle symbols from our childhood. For the extended family, pieces tailored to their individual tastes. I even splurged on new business cards with a gold foil logo, hoping they would finally see me as a legitimate professional. Maybe, just maybe, this would be the Christmas I finally felt like I belonged. A week before the holiday, I finished my last holiday orders, packed up the family gifts, and drove my secondhand Subaru from Brooklyn to Greenwich. I arrived on the afternoon of the 18th feeling a flicker of hope. I had no idea that within hours my entire world would shatter. I pulled into the circular driveway of the sprawling family home. It was already dressed for Christmas, with flawless white lights tracing every eave, massive wreaths on every window, and 2 perfectly symmetrical trees flanking the front door. A team of landscapers was putting the final touches on the outdoor decorations. I grabbed my overnight bag and the box of jewelry samples, hoping to show my mother the care I'd put into each piece. Maria, our longtime housekeeper, answered the door with a warm smile. She'd always been kind to me, even wearing a simple silver bracelet I'd made for her years ago. "Miss Francis, it's so good to see you," she said. "Your mother and sister are in the kitchen with the caterer." I thanked her and walked through the immaculate house, noticing new furniture and fresh flowers everywhere. The kitchen had been recently renovated into a cold landscape of white marble and stainless steel. My mother and Amanda were huddled over a tablet with a man in a chef's coat. They didn't look up when I walked in. "Francis, finally," my mother said, not moving to hug me. "The guest room on the east wing is ready for you. Not your old room. We needed that for storage this year." There was no hello, no how was your drive. My old bedroom, the one I'd had for 18 years, had been reassigned without a second thought. "Hi, Mom, Amanda. The house looks beautiful," I said. Trying to stay positive, Amanda glanced up briefly. "You look tired. The city must be wearing you down." It was a judgment, not a question. Thinly disguised as concern, I forced a smile. "Actually, business has been great. Really busy with holiday orders. I brought some samples of the gifts I made to show you." My mother waved a dismissive hand. "We're in the middle of finalizing the menu. Perhaps later? The caterer needs our attention." The caterer gave me a sympathetic look. I'd been dismissed. "Sure, no problem. I'll just take my things upstairs." Neither of them responded. The familiar ache of disappointment settled in my stomach, but I pushed it down. This was nothing new. I just had to find the right moment. After settling into the impersonal guest room, I went to find my father and brother, hoping for a better reception. As I approached my father's study, I heard the murmur of intense conversation. I was about to knock when I heard my name. "Francis needs to understand that this jewelry hobby is not a sustainable future," my father said, his voice firm. I froze, my hand hovering inches from the door. "That's why I invited Stephen," my brother Jordan replied. Stephen was his friend, a financial advisor. As a professional, he can present the hard numbers during the intervention. Show her exactly how precarious her situation is compared to a real career. Intervention. The word hit me like a physical blow. My heart began to pound. I carefully moved to the side of the partially open door, staying out of sight. "Do you really think an intervention during Christmas dinner is the right approach?" That was my Uncle Robert's voice. He sounded uneasy. "It's the perfect time," my mother's voice chimed in. I hadn't even known she was there. With the entire family present, she'll feel the appropriate pressure to finally make a sensible decision. "I've already spoken with Lawrence at the firm," my father continued. "He can create a position for her in the marketing department. Nothing too demanding, but it will give her structure and a proper salary." My sister Amanda's voice was next. "I think we need to be very direct. The last time I suggested she consider other options, she started going on about her Instagram followers, as if that's a measure of success." They all laughed. The sound was sharp, cutting me to the core. "What exactly are you planning to say?" Uncle Robert asked. "We'll wait until after the main course," my mother explained, her tone shifting into the one she used for planning charity galas. "Thomas will express our concern for Francis's future. Then Jordan will introduce Stephen, who will present a brief financial assessment of her so-called business versus a corporate position." "I've gathered some numbers," Jordan added. "Based on her apartment size and lifestyle, she can barely be making $30,000 a year. Stephen will contrast that with entry-level corporate positions starting at twice that. They had been investigating me, judging my success by the size of my apartment. The violation felt like a punch to the chest. "I still don't understand why this needs to be public," Uncle Robert persisted. "Because she needs to feel the weight of family expectations," my mother replied coolly. "When she sees everyone's concern, she'll finally understand how her choices affect the family reputation. The Morgan's daughter just made junior partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, while our daughter sells trinkets at craft fairs. It's embarrassing, trinkets. Craft fairs. They had no idea I'd moved beyond that years ago, that my work was now in respected boutiques. They'd never bothered to ask." "And what if she refuses?" Uncle Robert asked. A heavy silence fell before my father spoke. "Then we make it clear that our financial support ends completely." I almost gasped. "What financial support?" I had been completely self-sufficient since graduation, a fact they would know if they'd ever shown a genuine interest in my life. "While she's at dinner," my mother added, "I've arranged for the staff to clear out her childhood bedroom completely. Cousin Bethany needs the space, and it's time Francis understood she cannot keep one foot in each world." Tears blurred my vision. They were going to empty my room. The room filled with my journals, my photo albums, my keepsakes, while I sat through their public shaming. "She still has those ridiculous participation trophies from grade school art classes on the bookshelf," Amanda said with a laugh, "as if those validate her choice to throw away a real career on this hobby. Did you see what she wore to Thanksgiving?" My mother joined in. "That handmade dress that looked like something from a thrift store. If she's going to insist on this artistic lifestyle, she could at least dress properly when she's representing the family." That dress had been designed by a friend launching her own small line. I'd worn it proudly to support her. "Well, maybe this intervention will finally get through to her," Jordan concluded. 28 isn't too late to start over with a respectable career. I have the perfect analogy prepared, my mother said, sounding pleased. I'm going to tell her that her little jewelry business is like the macaroni art we used to hang on the refrigerator. Cute as a childhood phase, but not something to build a life around. They all laughed again, and I heard the clink of glasses toasting. I backed away from the door silently, tears streaming down my face. Every word had sliced through years of trying to earn their approval, of making myself smaller to fit their mold. Their plan was clear: ambush me, humiliate me in front of everyone, force me to abandon my dreams, and then erase me from the house. All on Christmas Day. I stumbled back to the guest room, closed the door, and sank to the floor. The beautiful jewelry I'd made for them sat in its velvet boxes. Each piece represented hours of work, thought, and love, things they would never understand or appreciate. For the first time, I saw my family with perfect clarity. This wasn't tough love. It was control, manipulation, and a profound lack of respect for who I was. I don't remember packing my bag. I don't remember taking the back stairs to avoid being seen. I do remember mumbling something to Maria about an emergency in the city. The next clear memory I have is sitting in my car at a rest stop, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. I called my best friend Zoe. She answered on the second ring. Hey, Francis, are you at the family compound of doom already? How bad is it this year? The sound of her caring, familiar voice broke through the numbness. I burst into tears, sobbing so hard I could barely speak. They were planning an intervention at dinner. Financial shaming, clearing out my room. Whoa, slow down, Zoe said, her voice instantly shifting to concern. Where are you right now? Are you safe? I looked around the brightly lit rest stop, generic holiday music tinny in the background. I'm at a rest stop. I left. I couldn't stay after what I heard. Good. You shouldn't be driving this upset. Just breathe for a minute, okay? I followed her instructions, taking deep, ragged breaths until I could explain everything I'd overheard. Zoe listened without interrupting, then said exactly what I needed to hear. Those absolute monsters. Francis, you know none of what they said is true, right? Your business is legitimate and successful. You are talented and hardworking. They're just too wrapped up in their own narrow world to see it. But what if they're right? I whispered, the old insecurity clawing its way back. What if I'm just playing at business while everyone else is building real careers? Are you kidding me? She said, her voice firm. Last month, you turned down wholesale orders because you were at capacity. You have a wait list for custom pieces. You just hired an assistant. Those aren't signs of a hobby. That's a real business. She was right. I had been downplaying my success to them for years to avoid criticism, but the reality was that Francesca Designs was growing steadily. I'd even been approached by a national retailer interested in carrying my work. Why do I still care what they think? I asked, wiping my tears. After all these years of being dismissed, why does their approval still matter? Because they're your family, Zoe said gently, and they programmed you from birth to measure your worth by their standards. Breaking that is hard work. As we talked, other memories surfaced, all the times I'd been dismissed or humiliated. My mother introducing me as still finding her way. My father ignoring my graduation to talk about Jordan's promotion. Amanda asking if I needed money for clothes in front of everyone. Each memory was another cut. Another reason I should have seen this coming. Do you want to come stay with me tonight? Zoe offered. You shouldn't be alone. Thank you, but I think I need my own space to process. I'll call you tomorrow. The drive back to Brooklyn felt surreal, but when I unlocked the door to my small apartment, a sense of peace washed over me. This was my space, paid for with my own hard work. It was a sanctuary. I looked around at the evidence of my real life, not the failing one my family had invented. The wall of framed press clippings from design blogs. The organized chaos of my studio. The spreadsheets showing 5 years of growing revenue. The portfolio of happy client testimonials. I opened my laptop and looked at an email I'd been hesitating over for 2 weeks. It was from Silver & Stone, a national retailer offering to feature a collection of my designs in their spring catalog. The minimum order would double my annual revenue. I'd been nervous about scaling up, but now the decision seemed clear. This was a real opportunity that any sane business person would recognize. I looked at the childhood photos on my bookshelf, my family smiling at the beach. My graduation, were those moments ever real or were they just performances? I didn't sleep much that night, cycling between anger, grief, and a strange, dawning clarity. By morning, exhausted but calm, I realized I had a choice. Keep chasing their approval, which would never come, or finally choose myself. For the first time, the answer was obvious. I deserved better. That morning, I woke up with swollen eyes but a clear mind. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my mother and a text. Where are you? The caterer needs final numbers. No concern for me, just logistics for her perfect party. I didn't reply. Instead, I drank my coffee and started making a plan. I would be strategic, not emotional. First, I called my therapist, Dr. Winters, and booked an emergency session. What you overheard was emotional abuse, Francis, she told me that afternoon. Their plan wasn't about helping you. It was about control. A family should provide love and respect. Blood relation doesn't give anyone the right to demean your life choices. You've built a successful business. That deserves celebration, not an intervention. We talked about boundaries and the grief of accepting people for who they are, not who you wish they were. By the end of the session, I felt stronger. Back home, I made a real plan. I would not go to their Christmas. They could figure it out. I would accept the silver and stone offer. I would plan my own Christmas with my real friends, my chosen family. I would still send the gifts I'd made, with personal notes. I would set clear boundaries for any future contact. I would get my childhood things out of that house before they threw them away. The last part was tricky. I called a lawyer friend who confirmed that, technically, my stuff could be considered abandoned. She advised me to send a certified letter stating my intention to retrieve it, creating a legal paper trail. I did that immediately, listing my journals, photos, and my first jewelry tools. Then I called Zoe and told her my plan. "I'm in," she said without hesitation. "You can use my family's cabin in the Catskills. It's perfect. Big fireplace, lots of room, and it's empty at Christmas. We'll have our own celebration." I reached out to my closest friends. Lucas, who'd first given my jewelry a chance in his boutique. Sophia, a fellow artist. Michael, Zoe's husband, who'd built my website. They all immediately agreed to come. The executive at Silver and Stone was pleasantly surprised when I called to accept their offer. We scheduled a meeting for January. For the gifts, I found a high-end delivery service. The owner was so intrigued by my story that she promised to deliver them personally on Christmas Eve. With each task completed, I felt a mix of sadness and liberation. I was grieving the family I'd never had, but I was also making space for a life that was truly my own. A few days before Christmas, I got a response to my certified letter, not from my parents, but from their lawyer. It coldly stated I could schedule an appointment to collect my belongings after the holidays, with a staff member supervising. The impersonal tone just confirmed I was doing the right thing. On December 23rd, I packed my car with food, gifts, and warm clothes. That night, looking at my small, lovingly decorated Christmas tree, I felt completely certain. I was done shrinking myself to fit their expectations. December 24th was clear and bright. I finished loading the car and took one last look at my apartment. Everything felt right. The drive to the Catskills was peaceful. By noon, I pulled up to a beautiful timber cabin nestled among snow-dusted pines. Smoke curled from the chimney. Zoe burst out the front door to greet me. "Welcome to Freedom Christmas," she announced, hugging me. Michael and I got the fire going. The cabin was perfect. Exposed beams, a huge stone fireplace, and windows looking out onto the woods. It was warm and lived in, the complete opposite of my parents' sterile mansion. Throughout the afternoon, my friends arrived. Lucas brought wine from his brother's vineyard. Sophia brought her famous pies. The cabin filled with laughter, real conversation, and the smell of good food. No one was judging anyone. It was genuine. At 6:30, my phone rang. Right on time. It was Amanda. I stepped into a bedroom for privacy. "Hello? Francis, where are you?" she demanded, annoyance dripping from every word. "Everyone is asking. Mom is freaking out. I'm not coming," I said simply. "What do you mean you're not coming?" "Of course you are. The whole family is here. I mean, I'm not attending Christmas this year. You can't just not show up. This is so irresponsible, Francis. Just like your—" She cut herself off, but I knew she'd been about to say hobby. "Tell them whatever you want, Amanda. I'm sure you'll find a way to spin it. By the way, gifts for everyone will be delivered tonight. I put a lot of thought into them." I ended the call before she could reply. My phone rang again. Jordan, then my father. I let them go to voicemail. Then, the call I knew was coming. My mother. Frances Elizabeth Harper. "Where are you?" Her voice was tight with controlled fury. "I'm celebrating Christmas elsewhere this year." "Elsewhere?" "The family is all here. The caterer has the final head count. Your grandmother flew from London." "This is unacceptable, is it?" I asked, amazed at how calm I felt. "More unacceptable than planning to ambush and humiliate your daughter at dinner? More unacceptable than clearing out her bedroom while she sits there? More unacceptable than calling her career a hobby and her work trinkets?" Silence. Then, "I have no idea what you're talking about. I overheard everything, Mom, last weekend in Dad's study. You all planning the intervention with Stephen, the financial shaming, the job at Dad's firm, clearing out my room for Bethany. I heard it all." Another silence, then a shift in tactic. "Francis, you misunderstood. We're concerned about your future. This comes from a place of love." I actually laughed. Love? Was it love when you called my work macaroni art? Was it love when you said I was an embarrassment? "You were eavesdropping," she accused. "I was about to knock when I heard my name. Thank God I did, or I'd be walking into your trap right now. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting as usual. Just tell me where you are. There's nothing to discuss. I won't be coming to any gathering where I'm not respected. If you don't show up, your father will be furious. There will be consequences." For the first time, the threat had no power. What consequences? Cutting me off? I've supported myself for years. Taking my room? You're already doing that. Damaging the family reputation? I'm sure you'll find a lie to tell. Francis, you're being dramatic. No, Mother. I'm finally being honest. I deserve better. I deserve respect for the business I've built. Since I can't get that from you, I'm spending Christmas with people who value me. I could hear confused voices in the background on her end. "Your gifts will be delivered tonight. "Merry Christmas, Mother," I ended the call. I was trembling, but I felt stronger than I ever had. A soft knock came at the door. It was Zoe. "Everything okay?" "We heard you getting firm," I smiled. "Everything is better than okay. I just stood up to my mother for the first time in my life." She grinned and handed me a glass of wine. "Then we should celebrate." When I rejoined my friends, Lucas raised his glass. "To Francis, the most talented jewelry designer I know, and the newest member of the Christmas cabin crew." As we clinked glasses, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Jordan. Not everyone agreed with the intervention plan. "Call me when you're ready to talk." An hour later, I got confirmation that all the gifts had been delivered. I could only imagine the scene as my family opened the thoughtful, handmade pieces I'd designed for them. That Christmas Eve was everything the holiday should be. We cooked together, told stories, and laughed by the fire. We made new ornaments for a tree of our own, and as I painted a small bird leaving an open cage, I felt a sense of belonging I'd never known with my biological family. Later that night, my phone buzzed with texts from relatives. My Aunt Leanne: "Just heard what happened. Not everyone agrees with your parents. Your grandmother was upset. Your gift is beautiful." A cousin: "Your jewelry is incredible." Dinner is super awkward. Your mom won't answer questions. My absence had caused the very disruption my mother feared. Christmas morning at the cabin was perfect. We exchanged small, meaningful gifts. I gave each friend a piece of jewelry I'd made just for them. Sophia cried when she opened hers. "This is why you're successful," she said. "You don't just make jewelry, you create meaning." That afternoon, my Uncle Robert called. "Francis, I want you to know I never supported that intervention nonsense. Your business is impressive." "Thank you, Uncle Robert. That means a lot. Things are tense here," he continued. "When your gifts arrived, it caused a stir. Your grandmother opened her bracelet and said the craftsmanship was better than her pieces from Tiffany. She demanded to know why no one had told her how successful you'd become. The whole story came out over dinner. Your grandmother was furious. A weight I didn't know I was carrying lifted. It mattered that someone in the family saw the truth. There's something else," he said gently. "I went through something similar with your grandfather when I chose architecture. It took years, but he came around. Don't give up on reconciliation entirely, but stand firm in your boundaries." That evening, as we sat around the fire, I got an email from Silver & Stone. They were increasing their initial order by 30% and wanted to feature me as an emerging designer to watch. The professional validation had arrived at the exact moment I'd stopped seeking my family's approval. The irony wasn't lost on me. As I watched the snow fall outside, I felt a profound sense of peace. The pain of my family's rejection was still there, but it no longer defined me. I had chosen myself, and in doing so, I'd found I was surrounded by people who chose me, too. 1 month later, I was standing in my new, larger workshop. The Silver & Stone deal had forced me to expand. Business was booming. My family situation was still complicated. My mother was cold and in denial. My father sent me condescending financial projections. But Jordan was slowly reaching out, actually asking thoughtful questions about my work. My grandmother had written me a lovely letter and invited me to London. Extended family were placing orders. I'd retrieved my childhood belongings with Maria's help, my mother having made herself scarce. It was a small kindness. My friends and I were already planning next year's Freedom Christmas. Dr. Winters, my therapist, helped me see that setting that boundary wasn't a failure, but a huge achievement. As I arranged my tools in the new studio, I thought about how different my life would be if I hadn't overheard that conversation. I'd probably still be trying to earn a love that was conditional on me being someone I wasn't. That painful discovery had become a doorway. Not a freedom from family, as they'd threatened, but a freedom to define my own worth, to set my own boundaries, to live a life that was authentically mine. This journey isn't over. Family wounds take time to heal, but I'm facing it now as a whole person, not a disappointment. I'm Frances Harper, jewelry designer, business owner, and a person surrounded by love and respect. The greatest gift I gave myself last Christmas wasn't walking away from my family's dinner. It was walking toward my own truth. And in choosing to value myself, I finally found my own voice.